if you end up living your life the same way, if you end up creating things that are the same things as everybody else that you see on the internet or around you, because especially in this day of social media, it's so easy to be influenced in little ways. And that is why it's important now more than ever to question and to be a free, independent thinker. Welcome to Teesside Thursdays with Win. This is your bi-weekly pocket of pain-stained thoughts, creative chaos, and a gentle reminder that yes, you are allowed to be a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. I'm Win, your resident rambler, a brush wielder, and a dream builder. Every other week, we will be diving into whatever is on the canvas of my mind. Maybe it's the strange balance between ambition and burnout, or maybe it's about a sketch. I don't want it to be scripted, no polishing, just pure presence. Let's talk art, growth, and all the in-betweens that we don't normally hear about. So grab your own cup of tea and let's wander in this creative wilderness together. Your Thursdays just got a little bit weirder, but also a little bit more wonderful. Hello and welcome to the first Teesside Thursday Chats with Win. Today I have a cup of matcha with me that I made with soy milk, and it's gonna be tasty and it's gonna be juicy. And it's gonna be tasty and juicy because I think it's gonna be a little bit different to the things that I normally do. Just a little bit, I think. Hopefully I remember to drink, by the way, because I can go on a little bit. Okay, so how it came out to do this series is because when I get together with my partner, or when I get together with really close friends and we're talking about things and we're reflecting and stuff like that, I always end up having the most interesting conversations. And I always think to myself, oh my God, like I wish I could have shared that with people, because it's such an interesting thought or it's such an interesting idea. And I never really do that, especially now in this stage of my life where, you know, I've taken the biggest career change of my life, and I feel like there are so many things happening behind the scenes, so many things that I discuss, especially with my partner, about this whole process and how it's going and what I'm working on, how I'm navigating this whole path. And I wish that I recorded more of those earlier discussions. So that's how this series started. And it's going to be to do with art, to do with life, and life feeding back into art. Let me drink. I feel so passionate to talk about these various things. I feel like I'm not even taking a step back. So I believe that life feeds into art and art feeds back into life. So whatever is happening in my life, I let it feed back into my art, in the things that I'm creating or the emotions that I'm bringing out into the paintings. And whatever is happening in my art, I let it feed back into my life, because art making is for me such a courageous thing to do, because I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone every single time I paint something. And that gives me a lot of courage for my life. So everything is a cyclical process for me. So the topics that we're going to cover in this series is going to be, I think, very varied, because my mind is very layered. And my closest friends and my partner know this about me, because I think on different planes and crisscross various things. And I don't know, it's just the way my mind works, and I'm proud of it, because that is something that allows me to stay innovative and think of new ways of doing things and new ways of thinking about things and all of that. So with that being said, this topic is going to be about independent thinking and also sticking up for yourself. I realized something that was really important to me as a value that I think is actually something that I would like to share more about, which is to the ability to think independently. So when we swap stories, my partner talks about his childhood, which to me sounds like he had a lot more of freedom in his younger years. Whereas with me, I came from, as you might know already, like this very strict Asian household, very academic orientated, and I had to beg, literally beg for my parents to be able to let me go out to even see my friends or even go to the cinema or like attend their birthday parties, which I hardly ever really did. And it was only when I left school and when I left out to go to university, I moved to a completely different city and I was away from my parents and my sister. And that was when I started to gain my form of freedom, because they couldn't really dictate how to live my life or what to think or what to do. And I was a little bit further out of reach. And that actually gave me a lot of freedom to make my own mistakes and to think for myself. So when I went to uni, like I didn't go crazy, right? I don't drink and I don't really party a lot, but I did do things that I really liked. Like I went on more hikes and walks and I met people from different countries and it was really, really amazing. And also I made my own mistakes, but that also allowed me to learn from those mistakes. And there's nothing quite like making mistakes and learning from them that actually like makes things more concrete in your life. So all of these things happened. And as I became more and more of an adult, I started to get more and more of a freedom, because my mum especially gave me the trust that was required from adult to adult now that I'm grown up. And she tells me something similar to apparently what her mum has always told them, like, I've taught you the things that I need to teach you, and I trust that you will make your own decisions that will be good for you, right? And of course, that is something that she said, but as a human, we are all going to be making our own choices and learning from them as a result. No human is perfect. And we should never really strive to be. And that's one of the things about independent thinking, is that a lot of the times we end up really, really taking on whoever is near our immediate environment. So there's a saying, right, that you are the result of the closest people, the closest 5 people in your circle. And if they are all echoing similar things, then you are going to be a result of that. And that's why it's really so important to branch out. And that's why it becomes so important to be able to question things and think about things for yourself. So with that being said, like if people around you are thinking and doing similar things, then you are going to do similar things to them. But as a result, your life will look similar to their life. But the thing that I always question with me is, do I want my life to look similar to the people I see around me? And most of the time it's a no. And I think that it should really be a no for most people, only because your life is your life. And I'm a Buddhist and I believe in reincarnation, but I also believe that I only have this life in this reincarnation as Win, who is making art and creating things and sharing things on the internet and all of that stuff. Like, this is me in this reincarnation, and I don't think I'll ever reincarnate in this way again. So with that being said, it's important to question things and not just take whatever people have said as like gospel. Because a lot of the times what I experience and what I've experienced recently is people projecting their fears onto you in many ways, in small ways and in big ways. And fear is the thing that can consume a lot of us. It consumes me. And when fear consumes you, there's not really anything stopping anyone from seeing things in a different perspective or being able to calm down enough to step out of that fear. So it's important that when someone is projecting a certain thing, to take a step back and be like, look, like, is this really what I'm also feeling and thinking? Or am I feeling this way suddenly fearful, or suddenly in a particular type of feeling because of what they just said to me? And am I in alignment with the things that they've said? And the way I've learned to think independently is just to pull from different sources, mostly my own base life experiences, but also the things I've read from various sources, the people I've had conversations with who are also people who I think most of the time, the closest people that I speak to are also like people who are free thinkers, and they question things as well. They question themselves like me. And it's important to do that, because that process in itself has always been embedded in my creative thinking and my creative process. So when I do creative work, like when I'm painting or when I'm thinking about the creative process, even like filming, or ideas that I come up with, I'm always questioning. And I think that questioning allows us to come up with new ways of working, new ways of doing things. And that is ultimately, I think, a good thing, because if you end up living your life the same way, if you end up creating things that are the same things as everybody else that you see on the internet or around you, because especially in this day of social media, it's so easy to be influenced in little ways. And that is why it's important now more than ever to question and to be a free, independent thinker. So my first reaction to most things that I've independently had a thought process of is that most people don't take it well, because it's different to their way of thinking and doing things, and they end up either saying that you're wrong or you shouldn't do it this way, and piling more thoughts and fears on top of you. I just want to say that that's maybe normal experience of a person who questions things and maybe wants to do things differently from what they see around them. You end up being the person who is maybe a little bit seen as, I don't know, different. And I'm learning that that's not a bad thing. But the thing that's really important is to stick up for yourself, stick up for your principles, stick up for what you believe in. And I'm not saying argue with people like I'm right and you're wrong. It's not about that. What I'm talking about is if you truly believe in something because of your lived experiences, and because of the things that you've observed, because of your own opinions and judgments and your own wishes for life, then I think we all have the right to communicate that to people around us and to live in that way. And if you live in that way, then yes, you will get feedback, you will get opposition sometimes, but it's important to keep sticking up for yourself, because it's only by sticking up for yourself that people eventually, I hope, will realize that you have just been you, yourself, all along. As an independent thinker, as a person who does question things, what happens is you end up exploring and discovering like amazing things. And I feel very emotionally when just talking about it, because for me, the ability to think freely, the ability to use my voice, freedom in general, and the ability to discover and explore in various aspects of my life are the most important values and the most important principles. And for me, like, it's not really about how young I am or how old I am, because I don't really see people in terms of like ages. Like, I see people in terms of like principles that they have and the values that they hold, and whether they live up to that principle, whether they live up to the values that they hold, whether their actions are in alignment and not just talking about things but actually living it out. And I respect people so much more when their actions and their values are in alignment side by side. And those are the people that I want to get to know. Those are the people that I want to be friends with. Those are the people that I admire. So I always try to emulate that in my life. So, like I said, for me, it's not really about me being young or old, because these are the principles and values and actions that I would like to carry with me throughout my elderly age, because for me, that's important, right? But it is true that when you start voicing out or sticking up for yourself, people will take a step back, because especially if you've been the type of person who's been very shy and timid or a bit more quiet. For me personally, in my personal life, like, I listen a lot more. Obviously, on camera, I have to talk because that's like what I do. I talk about my creative work, I talk and reflect and all that, and I share with you, right? But in my personal life, I listen a lot more, and then I sort of take it in a lot more. And I'm always reminding myself that I need to be, I need to show the side of me that is really truly me, which is what I'm sharing with you. And that takes time, and that takes effort, and that takes some resistance from others. I'm not gonna lie. But I do think that it is a really important thing to value and to take forward. I hope that we never lose a side of us that can question and that can think freely. I never want to take my voice for granted, and I never want to take my freedom for granted, because I know that in a lot of ways there are lives around the world where their voices are not heard and they don't have as much freedom as me. So I'll give you an example of normally what I do when I'm learning new things. A lot of the times I like learning is also a big part of my value. So I find myself always learning new things and trying out new things. And when I'm about to learn something new, I normally seek out external type of resource, whether it be an art program that I'm doing currently, or a coach or a mentor or a tutor, whether it be online or in real life. And in the beginning, like, I tried to have like a blank slate, like no objective whatsoever about how it should be done, how I want to do it, but more like taking on their way of doing things, because I haven't started, and taking on their way of doing things allows me to start, allows me to have some kind of a starting point. And then and I just absorb everything, their way, their views, the way of doing things. And then there comes a point, which is what's going to happen in these paintings, because I'm not going to be doing assignments for a long time. There will come a time where I'll be making my own paintings. And by the way, I can't wait to share with you this whole process, because I think it's going to be so layered and so interesting. But anyway, coming back to this topic, like, what was I talking about? There comes a time when I will have to be an independent bird flying off to create my own things based on the learnings that I've learned. And this part is the part where I start to question things, not for the sake of rebelliousness, just for the sake of knowing my own process, knowing how I want to integrate what I've learned into my life. And that's where the independent thinking comes from. There you can like question to say, oh, I like the way they've done that, but is that really like how I want to do things? Or I like this part, I definitely want to take that on, but I'm not really sure about this because this feels weird to me. And and you will know internally like what you want to do and try. And ultimately, the thing that we can't escape when we start questioning things, doing things, and trying and experimenting in this journey of discovery is that there will be risks you take. And ultimately, because of the risks, there will be mistakes you make. And you can't escape that. You can't be fearful of that. And that's something that I learn constantly. And that is what happens is, and it's a life of, I think, an artist, a creative. We go through that all the time in our creative process. But when you translate it to life as well, it's a similar thing. You will ultimately make mistakes, but the reward that you get is that you tried out something that you thought might work, and sometimes it does. You communicated something that you truly believed in. Sometimes it's well received, sometimes it's not. And that for me is a reward. I lived a life true to myself, well into my elderly age, right? So after the learning and absorbing, I start questioning and dissecting and experimenting and doing things my own way, integrating everything that I've learned, everything that I've tried out into this process that I think is ultimately like me coming up with my own process of doing things. And that's how I've always learned things. If I need to learn something else, I do the same thing again. And that's really what for me is like the ultimate learning and education is. It's not necessarily about going to school and passing tests. It's about coming up with your own process, being confident in it, being confident to try it out, and going for it. And I, for one, will tell you that, it's not necessarily an easy path to be someone who is doing different things and does think differently from most of what you see society is doing, or most of what you see society is living in. But I want to see more. I want to have more conversations with people who do think independently and who do stick up for their values and their principles with respect. And I just want to have more of these people in my life, because I do have a few close friends in my life who I deeply respect and I deeply admire. And they don't necessarily have the same views as me or just things the same way as me. God, no. But we do come together in a sense where when we come together, we start to share our lived experiences and share our values and principles and how that's going. And when I hear their stories and how different they are to mine, but I can still see that they are living an honest life that means that their actions are in alignment with their principles and their values, and not just through pure speech. I can really respect that. And then I think we just need more of these people in the world. And I want to be one of those people. And this, my friend, is my Teesside Thursday chat with you. I hope you will join me for more of my rambles.
I'm buried beneath the sand.